First of all, I just want to start out this video just by saying, rest in peace to Avicii and just, well wishes to his family. So I feel like there's been a decent amount of rhythm-based games that have come to the Switch, and Avicii Invector is a game that I was really interested in just because I really like the music that Avicii has put out over the years. So I was really excited just to try out this game and see how well this rhythm game matches up with other rhythm games on the Switch. Yo, what is going on, you guys? Thank you so much for tuning into this video. My name is Ryan, aka Arpit. If this is your first time to the channel, make sure and hit that subscribe button. But without further ado, let's get into Avicii Invector for the Nintendo Switch. So within all of my reviews, we are going to start out with the story of the game. Then we're going to get into the things I loved about the game, things I didn't love so much, and then my final overall verdict. Now, with a lot of these rhythm games, there's really not necessarily always a huge, extensive story involved, and this game is definitely no different. Now, the story mainly consists of just these short cutscenes, but it follows a pilot through these different worlds in her spaceship. And there really isn't much here, so there is an option to skip the cutscenes, and probably most people who play this game will probably skip those just to get on to the actual meat of the gameplay, which is, just going through the songs. So when it comes to the story, that's definitely going to fall under the cons, but it's also sort of a thing that's kind of expected with these types of games. But like in other rhythm games, the core gameplay involves you selecting a particular track and then you're mashing buttons to the beat of the music. Now, one thing that this game may do a little bit differently than other rhythm games is you do have two different elements where you are pressing buttons during the timing of the music. One consists of you also rotating in this triangle. Depending on the difficulty you're on, you may not be doing that, but definitely on the harder difficulties, you definitely find yourself doing this a lot. But you're going through those different sections as well as sections where you're moving left to right. But then there's also a third section where you are actually piloting the spaceship freely without being attached to any particular track. Now this segues perfectly into some of the things I love about the game is that it does offer those three different options to play, or not necessarily options, but three different play styles that you run into while you're playing the game. And that's definitely different from a lot of other rhythm-based games. Now, one thing I absolutely have to talk about initially is the visuals. I feel like this game, while it's definitely simplistic, it does a really good job of feeling at home on the Switch because of the simplistic style, they are able to really make a lot of visuals pop with the colors and the animations and everything. So in those ways, I feel like it looks really good. Now, while the cutscenes are kind of like this cartoon art style, may not necessarily be my favorite, while the core gameplay itself is something that I really, really loved. Now, one thing that I want to mention that I guess you wouldn't necessarily think be something I would be talking about, but the gameplay is really smooth, and 99% of the time, the buttons actually match the music, which is really good because, I don't know, sometimes there's games that, they're trying to match to a beat or music or whatever, and it just doesn't fly. It is just not great. But this game does a really, really awesome job, most of the time, of actually making sure that the notes you're hitting fall in line with the notes in the music. So there are a lot of games, like I said, that don't accomplish this, but this is actually a really, really strong point in this game, in my opinion. Now, this last thing will kind of lead into the cons a little bit, but it comes with the multiplayer aspect of the game. So there's local multiplayer where you can play up to 4 people, and each person can choose their own difficulty, which is really awesome. If you're all at different skill levels, you're not all stuck playing the same difficulty. Now, the drawback in this and leading into the cons is that there's no online multiplayer, and this is a game that really would have been really fun, I think, with online multiplayer, but unfortunately, that's not something that was added into the game. Now, there are leaderboards where you can push for the high score, or at least push for a score that gets you onto the leaderboards, and you can look at the leaderboards for either anyone playing the game, or if you've got a friends list, you can just try and be the best out of your friends. So in that way, it's a good thing. But there definitely was no online multiplayer, which for me was just kind of a bummer. Now, one thing I'll just kind of sort of mention in here, because I already talked about it, but that is with the story. So the story is a little non-existent, but I will say it does at least a decent job of kind of getting you through from world to world. So like when you start out, you've got 4 tracks and you have to pass each one of those tracks with at least 75% before moving on to the next world. Now that is kind of another con, is that for me, I had no problem on any difficulty hitting that 75% completion in order to move on. Now for me, I wasn't so upset about it because for me, it was more just like getting the highest score possible. So I will say the game's a little generous as far as, you know, timing your buttons correctly, because even sometimes I feel like I'm really late or early, there's times where it still registers. So in that way, you can definitely see that as a con. But honestly, I didn't mind this so much because for me, it was more just about, you know, pushing to be the highest on the leaderboard. Now let's get into my final overall verdict. Now, for me, I would give this game a really solid score of 9 out of 10. I know what you're thinking, Ryan, that is very generous. And this is definitely what I will say before picking up this game. Now, in order to enjoy this game, you definitely probably should be a fan of this type of music, whether you're a fan of Avicii specifically or not. The music itself obviously drives the whole game. So if you're not a fan of the music, you probably won't love the game. Second, if you're not a huge fan of rhythm games, also not a big thing for you. Now, for me, I personally just really enjoy both of those games when done correctly, or I enjoy that style of game when it's done correctly. So this, for me, with what it was trying to accomplish with its visuals, its music, gameplay, all of that tied together, honestly, it all really flowed. When comparing it to other rhythm games like this, I think this game does enough to separate itself from those other similar games. Now, probably the most important thing I'm gonna say in this entire video is that if you think you are interested in this game, guess what? You don't even have to pay for anything. You can download a demo, which gives you access to 2 songs. Now, it's only 2 songs, but I do think that that will give you a good idea of whether or not you're gonna enjoy the game, because it lets you try it out on multiple difficulties and all of that, so you can see, you know, whether you think it'll be difficult enough for you, or, you know, if you like the music, whatever. You can totally try out the demo for free. Now, the second part about this is, you know, if you think you're gonna buy the game, you don't have to commit to the full Encore Edition for $30. You can just buy the base game for $20. Now, the good thing about this is if you buy the $20 version and you think, oh man, it'd be awesome to have 5 or 10 more tracks. Well, both of those are just downloadable content in the eShop, both for $5.99. Now, the only drawback with not buying the Encore Edition and buying the DLC separate is that the DLC, there's 2 of them, and each one of them is going to be priced at $6, where the Encore Edition is going to be $30. So for you math whizzes out there, that's going to price you at $32 instead of $30 if you just were to buy the Encore Edition. So honestly, it's only $2. So if you're kind of on the fence and you think, I don't know if I'm going to want to play a whole, you know, 35 tracks, I'm only going to want to play the first 25, go ahead and just buy the base game. So I really love that they've made those different options available, because it gives us, the consumers of the product, you know, a lot of different options. So that's one thing that I really, really love that they've done. But for me, I really think this is one game that I can see myself coming back to a lot. So let me know what you guys think about this game, if you guys either just pick up the demo or you pick up the full game, and definitely let me know down below in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure and hit the like button and subscribe again if you guys are new here to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.